Assalamu alaikum, this is Dr. Fatma, and today we are going to discuss another important topic which is about non-invasive blood pressure monitoring. In the next episode, we are going to discuss the invasive blood pressure monitoring. So let's begin. Goals of today's discussion will be techniques which we use for non-invasive blood pressure monitoring, principles on which they work, indications, I mean when we have to do the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring of the patient, contraindications and limitations, as well as complications and cautions. Okay, so beginning with the techniques, we have got 4 to 5 techniques for non-invasive blood pressure monitoring. There is a rough or crude method that you don't need any apparatus for measurement of the blood pressure, in which what happens is that if you don't have any blood pressure apparatus, either invasive or non-invasive, what you do, and you need to see if there is a peripheral perfusion of the patient, or if the patient is having hypotension, you just feel the pulse, the radial pulse of the patient, and if you feel the radial pulse, yes, there is the systolic blood pressure is around 80 millimeters of mercury. So this is a crude method, and we can utilize it just when the patient arrives in your workplace, in your ICU, or anywhere you're working. Whenever you've received the patient, and if there is no monitor with the patient, you can just feel the pulse and you can have an idea for the perfusion and the blood pressure. Manual intermittent techniques have got 3 techniques further, starting with the palpation, auscultation, and Doppler probe. We are going to discuss their principles and their limitations in the next slides. Automated intermittent devices are the most popular ones. We use them in OT and in ICUs, and they are the basically most popular ones. Okay, and other one is automated continuous techniques. Well, they are also available, but they are not being used readily. I mean, they are not being used as popularly as automated intermittent devices, and they contain tonometry as well as photoplethysmography. Okay, so when we are discussing about the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring, we need to keep it in mind that if we don't use an appropriate bladder cuff size for the arm circumference, we are not going to get the good readings or the accurate readings. For example, if you apply a larger size of cuff as compared to the arm circumference, you are going to get a small reading of the systolic blood pressure, and vice versa. For example, if you are going to apply a smaller or narrow blood pressure cuff on a big arm, you're going to get a high reading. So these are basically the values starting from the newborn up to the large adult, as well as when you have to apply a tourniquet on the thigh, you need this particular width, which is 20 centimeters of water, and sorry, 20 centimeters, and length is 42 centimeters for a normal adult patient. And in the newborn, you have 4 centimeter width. With these are basically the standard readings. You can see, and you can vary the lengths and widths according to the health of or body build of the patient. You have to memorize all these readings by heart, so that you can apply them when you see the patients. I'm not going to go into the detail and which size you need for which patient. Okay, so these are the basically available blood pressure non-invasive devices which are being used very commonly. First of all, we have got sphygmomanometer, which is on the left side of the screen, on the upper panel. This basically utilizes the mercury, and that's why we take the blood pressure in the millimeters of mercury, and this is the most accurate one among all the blood pressure monitoring non-invasive devices. The next one is with a dial, and the next 3 are with the dial. They don't have a sphygmomanometer, they don't have a mercury column, but they have a dial instead of the mercury column. And they are basically, their advantage is that you can just take them to the hospital in your own overall pocket, in your bag. They are portable devices, and you don't need to have a sphygmomanometer all the time, and you cannot carry it easily. Some BP apparatuses come with different patterns, so that they are not that much they don't give a bad impression to the children. So as you can see, with the blueprint, we have got the blood pressure apparatus on the right side, And now on the lower panel of this page we have got an automated device, and we don't need any expertise for this for its manipulation, because these are the automated devices. You just apply the cuff on the arm of the patient, and even the patient can himself apply this particular device on his arm and take his blood pressure and monitor it. Okay, how we can determine the appropriate blood pressure size, cuff size in the children, guys? Let me tell you, there are basically two landmarks on the arm: acromion process and oligoclonal process. What happens is that you have to apply the blood pressure cuff, and it should be around its bladder width should be around 40% of the arm circumference of the child, and its length, the bladder length, not the whole blood pressure cuff length, but only the bladder length should be at least 80% of the arm length, arm circumference. Okay, so this is the appropriate size for the in the babies, in the neonates. What you need is that the bladder size, the bladder width size should be greater than 40% of the arm circumference, and its length should be greater than 80 or up to 100% of the arm circumference. So you need longer and wider blood pressure cuffs, blood pressure bladders for the babies, for the smaller babies, for the neonates. Okay, now we have to discuss the principles on which they work. Well, the principles of different non-invasive techniques are that palpation is the systolic blood pressure, and it is measured by the occlusion of the artery with the cuff. You just apply the bladder, the cuff of the BP apparatus on the artery, and when the sound appears, when the pulse is felt on the artery, you just have the systolic blood pressure. In the auscultation, well, here you have a turbulent flow of the blood with partially occluded artery, which produces the cortec of sounds. These are basically the 5 sounds. The first sound which appears is synchronous with the pulse, and second sound is the second. In the second phase, what happens is that the sound becomes softer, and then there is a third phase in which what happens is that as the diastolic point is getting nearer, sound becomes more intense, and in the phase 4, sound suddenly becomes muffled, and then 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury later it just disappears, and that is your diastolic blood pressure. Okay, and then we have the Doppler method, in which what happens is that the movement of the red blood cells produces a Doppler frequency shift, and you get the ultrasound and you get the blood pressure, systolic as well as the diastolic. Okay, what are the principle of the other non-invasive methods? For example, oscillometry, which is the intermittent automated technique. In the intermittent automatic technique, you get the oscillometric methods. You get the oscillations in the pressure or in the pressure amplitude, and they are measured in an air-filled cuff that slowly deflates from the pressure well in excess of the pressure to occlude the artery. And these oscillations are basically they travel to the they are traveled to the cuff, and they are interpreted by the monitor, and the systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure as well as the mean arterial pressure is shown on the monitor screen. In the tonometry, what happens is that the tonometer senses the pressure which is required to partially flatten the superficial artery. So you can have the radial blood pressure via the tonometer because it's a superficial artery, as well as you can have the brachial blood pressure as well. In the photoplethysmography, there is a quantification of the infrared light. And tonometry and photoplethysmography, as I already mentioned, they are the continuous non-invasive automated techniques as compared to oscillometry, which is the intermittent but automated non-invasive technique. Okay, now we have got the indications. I mean, when we have to utilize which of the following. Indications for the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring is, as far as anesthesia is concerned, any procedure which needs anesthesia, we have to measure the blood pressure of the patient. The American Society of Anesthesiology, they recommend that we have to measure the blood pressure every 3 to 5 minutes. And when the invasive blood pressure monitoring is contraindicated, yes, you have to you utilize the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring. The good thing about the non-invasive blood pressure technique is automated non-invasive blood pressure technique is that it frees the hand of the anesthetist. I mean, I don't have to do the palpatory or the auscultatory method every 3 to 5 minutes in the OR because I have got an automated non-invasive blood pressure monitoring device. Go ahead and look about the contraindications of these devices. Well, yes. Cuff-based blood pressure monitoring is contraindicated if the patient's limb if the patient limb has got axillary clearance. For example, most commonly in the patients with the breast cancer surgery, MRM, which is modified radical mastectomy, the surgeon removes the axillary lymph nodes, and when there are no axillary lymph nodes, the patient is told that you don't have to apply any blood pressure apparatus on that very arm. Okay, so we cannot measure the blood pressure uh, via this non-invasive technique on the limb with axillary clearance. Also, in the patients with the end-stage renal disease and they are on the renal replacement therapy or dialysis, hemodialysis, they usually have the arteriovenous fistula on the arm, and on which arm we cannot measure the blood pressure via the non-invasive technique because you are going to ruin the AV fistula. Limb with the peripherally inserted central venous catheter or peripheral IV lines also should not be used for blood pressure monitoring by the non-invasive techniques, and in the patients with known focal vascular anomalies. On focal anomalies, I mean focal vascular anomalies on the particular limb, you should not utilize it on that very arm. Also, if a patient is burnt, you are not going to apply any blood pressure apparatus on the burnt extremity. Now, palpatory method. Yes, it only detects the systolic blood pressure, as I already mentioned. You cannot assess the diastolic blood pressure via the palpatory method. Okay, and neither you can calculate the mean arterial pressure. It is not useful for continued monitoring, of course, and it is not reliable for the conditions of the low flow. Why? Because you are going to palpate the pulse. If the patient is in low flows, if the patient is hypotensive, if the patient is in sepsis or septic shock, if the patient has got cold peripheries, you are not going to have a good pulse volume, and you are not going to have the good blood pressure reading. The other thing is auscultation. In the auscultatory method, mean arterial pressure cannot be measured directly and has to be calculated by the formula, which is mean arterial pressure is equal to systolic blood pressure plus 2 into diastolic blood pressure divided by 3. Well, not useful for continuous monitoring, yes, because you have to apply it manually, so you cannot use it for the continued monitoring purposes. Interpersonal variability can be there due to hearing problem. For example, if a doctor has got hearing problem and the other doctor has no hearing problem, there can be a discrepancy about the readings between the two, and not reliable for the conditions of the low flow as well, because of the fact that that depends upon the cortic of sounds, and if the patient is having low flow, you may not feel the cortic of sounds well. Okay, the oscillometric method, I mean the intermittent non-invasive blood pressure monitoring which we utilize in operation theaters. You have got cuff size which is of prime importance, and if you don't have, I mean I have discussed this particular thing previously as well, but it's very important that I am discussing it again, that cuff size is of prime importance in accuracy of the blood pressure. The bladder length should be 80% of the arm, and the bladder width should be 40% of the arm circumference. Interpretation varies according to the site. I mean, in the lower limb, in the upper limb, or in the forearm. So you have got different interpretations according to the site on which you apply this cuff. Underestimate the mean arterial pressure during the hypertension, and it overestimates the mean arterial pressure during the hypotension, so it is not reliable in the unstable patients, and it also underestimates the systolic blood pressure and overestimates the diastolic blood pressure usually. And if the patient is the patient has got dysrhythmias, you can have a false blood pressure reading. In the tonometry, it needs frequent calibration, and the movement artifacts are very common in tonometric method, and they are limited ability in the critically ill patients. What are the complications of the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring? Well, you can see that the blood pressure cuff is inflated, the patient gets pain. And if you are doing it every 3 to 5 minutes in a awake patient, for example, if a patient who is having a procedure in spinal anesthesia and you are monitoring the blood pressure via the BP apparatus every 3 minutes or 5 minutes or more frequently, what happens is that the patient is going to have a pain in the limb on which the BP apparatus is present, and it is very annoying for the patient as well. Petechiae and ecchymosis can be there, as you can see in these two diagrams, that the arm with the BP apparatus, there is petechiae in the first picture, and in the second picture you can see the ecchymosis distally. Limb edema can occur distal to the cuff of the blood pressure apparatus. Venous stasis and thrombophlebitis. Peripheral neuropathy can even occur, especially with the radial nerve, and compartment syndrome in the very rare cases. So there is a limitation for the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring, that if you have got if you need to measure the blood pressure for continuously and for a longer period of time, you should avoid the non-invasive blood pressure monitoring, and you should just go for the invasive blood pressure monitoring, for example in the long surgeries. And the cautions you need to take is that the patients with known peripheral neuropathy, you don't have to you don't have to apply the non-invasive blood pressure monitor. Arterial or venous insufficiency you don't need this, and in the severe coagulopathies you are not going to use it, and in the recent use of thrombolytic therapy you're also not going to use it. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, like and share, and in the next video we are going to discuss the invasive blood pressure monitoring, its trends, its plethysmograph, what is the principle of the invasive blood pressure monitoring, and how we can utilize the plethysmograph of the invasive blood pressure monitoring in ORs, in ICUs, in anywhere where it is being used. It's a very useful lecture. Please stay tuned and wait for the next video. Thank you so much.